You're listening to When Love Comes, the podcast, a safe space for single women of faith on a journey of healing, growth, and preparing for the love you deserve. This resource was created with you in mind, so you'll be ready when love comes. Hey, y'all. Welcome to another episode of When Love Comes, the podcast. I'm your host, April Nowlin. I am a relationship coach, and I'm on this crazy mission to help people to heal from heartbreak, to create a life that they love, and to prepare for the love that they deserve. So if this is your first time listening, thank you. Welcome. If you are a regular listener, thank you for coming back. You know, the one thing that I ask you guys is if this blesses you, if you've heard something and you're like, other people need to hear this, then share it so other people can hear it. So many times people ask me, why did I start this podcast? Well, let me tell y'all something. After 3 failed marriages, I knew a few things to be true. One, I knew nothing about healthy relationships. Like, I don't know how many of y'all were taught about them, like as kids, but I was not. And so the other thing that I knew was I knew that there weren't a lot of resources at the time that would give me information about how do I heal? How do I live a great single life? And then when the time comes, how can I be ready for healthy love? And so that's the whole purpose of the podcast. So I'm super excited about my guest today. You guys have heard me share my story. Plenty of other guests share their stories about healing from heartbreak, about divorce recovery, but I wanted to get a man's perspective. I wanted to have someone on the show that can relate, but can give us his perspective, share his journey, and just talk about, what real healing looks like, and then what does it look like to find love again. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Cortez.
Hi. Hello. 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 Hello, Miss April. So honored to be here.
I am honored to have you.
This is exciting.
So
I love it.
we met just recently. So a few months ago, we both spoke at a conference hosted by Laura Bullock. It was the Position Yourself for Purpose conference. And I had not ever met you before. And so I feel like we just clicked. I loved hearing your story of healing and redemption and love and all the things, right?
Thank you.
And so I was like, you know what? You need to be on the podcast. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So I want to start with this question
What you got?
that I always ask every guest.
Okay.
How did you learn about relationships growing up?
I would say observing other people. I would say primarily in the household that I was raised in, which had an interesting dynamic, being the oldest son of my mom, and my mom and I, a good 2 or 3 years being with each other. My mom discovered a guy that was from the South through a relationship of her brother-in-law, which is from my aunt, introduced them, and then he married us, married us as a package deal. And so I got a chance to be exposed to a marriage hands-on. And then, of course, my grandparents, they were married until my grandfather passed away in 2008. And at that time, they were married for 61 years. And so those were like the grandparents' marriage and then in-house marriage. Everything else around it was just like observation and taking notes and yes, no, maybe so. It's type of deals along the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of our stories. We saw different relationships growing up. So
Yeah.
thinking about those two relationships that I would say you admired from what it sounds like, what did you take away from those relationships like as a young man as you started to get into your own relationships?
Oh my goodness. I took away a lot of the good, the bad, the ugly, and many of the things that would not fit my life. So the part that would not fit my life is more in my grown years that I had to learn and adapt to. And that comes to play with, God has a plan for you and seek what God has for you. But way much time before that came, well, I want someone that looks like my mom. You know how we do. A lot of women that I come across say stuff like, hey, how's your relationship with your mother? A lot of women wants to always know what's the relationship with a man and his mother. But what they don't ask is that relationship healthy?
Yes.
Was she a great example?
Hmm.
And I had to, so in my marriages of my past, I realized I had a regular pattern. I was kind of patterning myself after some type of taste of what my mother looked like. because of course we want the mother's approval, just like daughters want their dad's approval. And so I was trying to look for those type of attributes and the character traits in all of them. And just to realize I had to undo that. I had to unlearn that and don't go by that script, because we think that that's the standard, and that is not the standard I've learned.
Yes, yes. And
But yeah,
we're gonna dig into
let's
that
go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. This is good. This is
because
good.
so many of us, we will look at unhealthy relationships
Hmm.
and we'll say, yeah, I don't want that. And then we may see what we consider a healthy relationship and we're like, yeah, we want that. But so many times, I think we overcompensate one way or the other because you said something very important. We are trying to model our relationships based on someone else, but we're different people than that
Correct.
person, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
I want to get into
Let's
I
get
talk
to
a
it.
lot about my journey of divorce, of being married and divorced 3 times. And, we'll talk about patterns and things like that. But share with us a little bit about your journey.
Oh my goodness. Where do we start? Are you talking directly about how many times have I been married up until where I am now?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so as I calculate, I've had 3 failed marriages in my lifetime. 3. And let me tell you, I was at different stages of a man, different stages, different idioms of times, different areas of the way I thought. My mindset was different. And I was making a lot of judgment and error. I got that from Creflo Dollar, by the way. I made a lot of judgment, a lot of bad judgments and error in every stage. Now I was a different man, getting better, but I found myself at another fail, another fail, another fail. And they were spaced out, but not enough to learn who Cortez is and how I should have a marriage for me that fits where I'm going and not where I was. And so with those 3 different stages, first of all, first marriage, I'm 22 years old. So 22 years old, marrying an older woman that's 12 years older than me, that was the youngest out of her family at that time. All right. I meet her in church. I've been a professional drummer since I was 10, 11 years old. So 2 things I've been doing most of all of my life has been a drummer and a barber. All right. So being a musician, of course, you attract all kind of people with all kind of motives
Hmm.
and whatever. So I'm still learning me, even though it's flattering, it's impressive, but I'm like, oh
Hmm.
wow. So in the first relationship, I see a young lady in the audience at church, and I meet her at a time that I'm being impressive, but it was also impressing in reverse. And what I thought was cute, gorgeous on the outside, out exterior, I should say. She reminded me a lot of my mom, kept her hair up, because I'm raised out of a beautician house. My mother is a retired licensed cosmetologist, beautician, they say. So all I know is beautification. All I know is beauty. All I know is cosmetics, products, which is why I've been a master barber for years. Because all I know is the public of women and men and what people like when it comes to cosmetics and aesthetics. So when I see this young lady that seemed to have her hair nice, dressed nice, have the curves and all of that, I'm like, I would like to be introduced to that person. Who is she? And when I seen her having a son, here it is, a pattern. She had a son with her. Where's the dad? He's somewhere. Got it. And I'm like, I can relate to that. That reminds me of myself. So what I
Uh-huh.
seen modeled in our house, I'm like, well, if my daddy had a success with me and my mom, I can do that too. I'm the oldest child, and every person that I date is not going to always be a single person. So I thought, I didn't think that whoever I attract was going to be anything different. So when I saw my mom and dad as a success in the house that I lived in, I'm like, well, I could do it too, because they did a great job with us. Right.
Hmm.
So that's that. That lasted between on paper, it lasted about 8 years, but we had several breakdowns. Second wife, years after that divorce ended, I gave myself some time. I'm in a world that I have never been in, because my salvation with God, my relationship with music and the industry was being developed while I was in that painful situation, just trying to figure out who I am and who I was, while there was a lot of infidelity from my counterpart. So I'm being committed on, but I'm watching like this is not the way my dad would have done it. My dad was loyal to my mom. As of even today, I have not heard any stories that my mom had infidelity, nor my dad had infidelity.
Hmm.
But it's been a lot of infidelity in my family on my mom and my dad's side, you know.
Okay.
And so I was making that vow to myself. I never want to get a divorce. Let's just make that clear. Never want to be a divorce. I'm gonna stay in this. And so I'm thinking, through thick and thin, pain, sickness and health, all that other vile stuff. I'm thinking, well, this is what you're supposed to do because this is what I've seen people do. And I didn't realize toxic, abusive, verbal abuse, mental abuse. I'm just like, this is weird because what do? I don't see enough of me, my age, marrying an older woman that looks like me in this dynamic. It was just all the way off. And I felt totally out there. And so that's marriage one. Marriage two didn't last that long because now I'm like, I'm not going to look like this one anymore. Let me go ahead and marry somebody that's more compatible. Okay.
Okay.
They're my age, not older, but I'm still connected with somebody that has a son. And I'm just like, what is it with this son stuff? And I was like, okay, now mind you, while I had first marriage, second marriage, I also had my own daughter much time before that. So I'm raising my dad faithful in her life every other weekend, the whole thing and all that stuff, bringing my daughter into the equation with the people that I'm marrying. It's awkward. They're weird. Her mom wasn't really fond of the first one because they had just bumpy ends. This is my first situation because I moved in with my first wife first. And then my parents tells me, well, this is not the way we raised you. You need to get married. So that's another dynamic. So I got married out of living, so cohabitating was shacking, they said. But here's what's funny. Those patterns and things that I learned, now, even though my mom was saying, well, you and your dad, well, yeah, me and your dad didn't teach you that. And I'm saying, okay, no, you didn't teach me that, but you showed me that because they were not married when they moved in with each other. They got married after my sister was born. So I was literally like, well, that's contradicting. But at that time, and the way we are being 40 plus, shipping and handling, that era, you was always taught you don't question, you don't question this, your parent, you don't question that because that's disrespectful. Although they want you to be the best and be better than them. I'm like, well, I'm giving you the truth. This is what you've shown me. This is what I grew into. So those different things, I find myself repeating the things that I saw, even when I was not aware. That's a whole nother message, right? So my second relationship, I'm thinking, okay, so this person is in the arts because I've been playing music all my life. So I meet them in theater. They was an incredible underground singer. They have CDs out as of today, all of that. I'm like, well, this should be a better improvement because this is not somebody older. This is somebody that we both saying that we like the same thing. Plus, she told me, hey, I was ordained in ministry. I'm like, well, I'm ordained in ministry too. So I'm thinking compatible,
Yeah.
We have a lot of things the same and all of that. And I realized we had more conflict than what we had in compatible. I said, this is terrible. And we didn't even last past a year. So on paper, yes, we got married. We had even moved out of town trying to have our own little life. And then she shared with me, hey, there's been some infidelity on my end. Can you forgive me? And I'm just like, this is the second time it's been infidelity on their end towards me. And I'm like, where are the real straight up women? I'm kind of tired of hearing women talk about. This is just me talking. I'm tired of hearing women talk about there's not a lot of good men. Well, I'm like, well, that's the same thing about a lot of women. So maybe it's just a human nature thing, not gender thing. Where are all the good men? Where are all the good women? And I was making it women, plural, as if I've dated every woman. That's a whole nother subject. Right. So two bad apples is supposed to mess up the whole apple pie. That's not even right, but that's what I was doing. So now I have to grow out of that and get myself healed, give myself time and look at my flaws and stuff. And now I'm angry. And because here's the deal. I'm in ministry. I'm told that I'm a good counselor and a good mentor. And I'm mentoring people with all the success, seeing their stuff grow. And they're having great success stories. Finding love at first sight. Oh, Cortez, I'm glad that you helped me pick my bride. I couldn't have done it without you. And I'm like, I'm the most hypocritical person in my mind. How can I give advice to people and my stuff is the worst? And I'm like, I do a horrible job picking for me, but I can do great with telling you how to reconcile, how to have crisis interventions, and let's go ahead and make that crisis into, a good testimony and all of that. Then years later, I'm thinking, okay, I'm a different man now. I've matured. I've grown. Let me make sure I don't repeat my past. Just to realize it looked different, but same different traits, some of the same different spirits, just a different person, shaped different, and similar types. Okay, so one person looks like my mom in beauty, first marriage. Second one is in my music field. Maybe that'd be better because I'm more compatible in what we do. Fail, opposite, nothing. Well, my mother was a business person. My dad was definitely a supportive business. So let me grab somebody who's an entrepreneur because they have their own businesses and things like that. They've had great ventures. Well, okay, great. That should really, really work, and I'm
Right.
going after what I thought would be good, and that was another disaster. And I'm like, God, where am I missing it? And
Yeah.
so at that point, I'm like, I don't want to do this no more. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it.
I want to pause right there because there is so much for us to unpack. And I say that because, and you and I talked about your past, but there's even, new things I'm hearing now.
Yeah,
And our similarities are scary, right? What I
yeah,
mean by that is someone, same, grew up in church, been in ministry for over 20 years, went to
yeah.
Bible college, on staff at two different churches, all the things. And my divorce has happened over that same 20 years that I was in ministry. And so, one of the questions I want to ask, and I did another episode, if you guys haven't listened, it's with me and a lady named Dr. Alina Crawley, and we talk about this. But I want to ask you, I want to phrase this right because I believe that the things that we learned in church, I'm not going to say they were all wrong, but what I can say, they were very incomplete. So,
That's fair.
where do you think there was a disconnect? Because, like you said, you grew up in this Christian home. You're the drummer. I was married to the bass player at church. Like, I get
Yeah.
it, right? I was married
Yes.
to the guy who served in the youth ministry every Sunday. Like, I get it. Where do you think the disconnect was from us being raised in these faith-based, or you specifically being raised in these faith-based communities, but like you've got these failed relationships?
I would say not being properly mentored and discipled. That's customized for me. Okay. I had models that was modeling things that they had a lot of things that were not true, but they would never expose it to help someone else.
Yeah.
So, they had this protective image versus the integrity. So here I am. And it's crazy. I can say this. Almost all of the leaders that was working underneath the 20, 30 years, all of them have had challenging divorces that I've used to marvel to be like, I want to be like that. They are all not even married today. And I'm like, are you kidding me? In my mind, well, I say this. I'm not saying that they're not married today. They're not married to the same person when I
Same
was
person.
underneath their ministry. Let's be
Yeah.
clear, just in case they
Yeah.
get out, they be like, yes, I was
Right.
Cortez. You know
Like,
what I mean?
wait a minute.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
Yeah,
So,
no.
and so I'm saying this is that the disconnect is when you're pastoring people and we're underneath their leadership when it comes to church. I think it's a fair thing to say when you're going after God for your own destiny, here's some other assessments based upon your personality type you need to do for you. God has you built a certain way. And what I might be modeling in this setting may not be a good transcript, a good blueprint for you. And so when you're not given those extra assessments, those different analysis, you would think that this is the norm, this is the standard. I want to look like that because it presents a certain way, especially if it's in seasons that you're learning and earning, because I don't know any better, right? So I always teach, the difference between dumb, ignorant, and stupid. Dumb means that I don't know nothing. I'm dumb as a box of rocks. Ignorant means I ignore and rant at the same time, so I don't know any better. And when I'm just acting stupid, it means that I know better and I still go do it, or I still don't do it. Either one. It's just stupid. And so a lot of that stuff played on me, all three parts in my whole journey of these things in church, where I'm really looking for some type of example of what I'm going to look like for my journey. So I was kind of robbed, and I had a lot of heartbreak and a lot of these realisms because I remember
Yeah.
going back when I was going through my healing stages. Did you see these things that I was going through, sir? Because I also had a female pastor too. Sir,
Mhm.
ma'am, what did you see on my life at the time? Is this something that I could did better? Because it used to make me feel like I was like, well, I'm learning about reconciliation. And I know that
Yeah.
God will bless reconciliation. He will also bless you if you walk away. And I had a lot of legalism and a lot of people, the way they was thinking holiness and all that, you need to stick it out. And I'm just like, not to the expense that I don't want to do anything. So you didn't really hear the common language of toxic like you hear now.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
so now that I know what I know now, I said, well, a lot of the stuff I was in, I had toxic leadership.
Yeah.
And you only pretty much been a replica of what you're getting, because toxic means anybody that make you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
A lot of us did. A lot of us grew up with toxic leadership. And let me say this. I think that a big part of it too was that they did not have the words, the courage, the encouragement to speak up, right? So I
I
know
have to
I
agree with
grew
that.
up in the 90s church, right? Where and even at home, you don't say anything. What happens at home stays at home. And what makes me think about this is even your parents, right? How you moved in with someone and they were like, "We didn't teach you to do that." But that's exactly what you taught me to do
Right, right. Because you
because
taught
it's
me,
what you modeled.
yeah. And I think they was hoping for me not to see the things that I saw, which I think that's
Mhm.
a lot of their issues. They was hoping
Yeah.
that, you're seeing that, right? So a person like me, the way I'm built up, I hope that you would have carefully examined that I'm very observant. And the words you say, I'm going to hold on to them because that's all the hope I got. Because we
Yeah.
only trust what has been proven. And if it's been
Yeah.
proven to be like we're lasting, but what a lot of leaders and parents did not teach us is even though it's been proven to be lasting, the way we're lasting, we're living check to check. We're
Sir.
living on fumes. We live in check to check on fumes and on life support. And a lot of people
Sir.
have too much pride to even share that. We want people to say, well, since you look up to me, because we pretty much building up their self-esteem. We're keeping because we're going to them, making them feel like, you're the go-to person. And so any
Yeah.
parent gonna be like, that's right. Go ahead and listen to your dad, listen to your mom. Right. But you guys didn't have the proper teaching either. Now, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean because other people didn't have it doesn't 100% means, and I definitely want to be clear with this, that because other people didn't have proper teaching, they couldn't give us better teaching to say this is what not to do.
Yes.
And I'm gonna take ownership. I shouldn't have done this, but the way you're built up, which is what I'm saying, let's customize. The way you built up,
Mhm.
you probably have a better teaching, better situation going to these people that I esteem. We didn't have that type of
Yeah.
exchange because I think somewhere in that disconnect, they feel like if I give you that, it would take away from the credence and the credibility that you give me. It'll take away from it as if I don't have nothing to give you. When we don't realize that's a great wealth of knowledge to give someone. Let me just give you a gift that I'm not the best teacher in this area. I can point you to
Yeah.
who probably is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. And I think that another area that we need to do that with is those we're responsible to for like our children. And I remember going through my third divorce, and at the time she was 10. So my first marriage, I was very young. I got divorced at 21. Funny enough, he was 10 years older than me. Second marriage, I got divorced at 31, and then my third marriage, I got divorced at 41. So talk about patterns.
Yeah.
And it was that third divorce that my daughter was old enough to understand what was happening. And I remember sharing with her that this wasn't my first divorce. So me and her dad divorced when she was 6 months old. So she never knew us together. It was always mommy's house and daddy's house. So this was the first time she'd really experienced that separation and things like that. And I remember sharing with her, and now she's 17, about being married 3 times, right? And how did I get here?
Yeah.
And taking ownership of the things that I did that contributed to me ending up in this, toxic cycle of relationship. And so what I could have done as a parent is just kind of played the you're a kid, I'm an adult, you don't ask me questions, type
Mm-mm.
that I think we grew up with, right?
That's
And
exactly what we
so
grew up with.
I allowed her to ask questions. And even now at 17, we talk about it because obviously I speak very publicly about my past, but um, I never want her to one think that that is the way relationships are done and that is the way that you expect relationships to go. But I wanted her to be able to ask those questions and share those feelings and even be like, "Girl, what's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
But I think that is our responsibility to those that we're accountable for. And that is whether that is children, if you are a leader, I think it is your responsibility, not necessarily to put all your dirt out there, but it is your responsibility, I think, to educate and to take ownership. And so I
Oh
want
yeah.
to ask you this. I know as a woman, particularly in faith based communities, we face a lot of shame and stigma when it comes to divorce.
Oh yeah.
Across your journey, did you encounter any of the type of any of those things in the either organizations that you were with or family, or did you encounter any of that along your journey?
Absolutely. Every relationship of marriage, I face a lot of shame because I'm in the public figure as well. I didn't, you know, I'm one that like to celebrate anything that I feel like I have victory with, and I believe almost every man feel that way. Men are built to say that we love to own things. So anything we own, we brag about. Hey, that's my car, that's my buildings, And men, I'm a primary a person who feel that the man is the one that pretty much confirmed the relationship. So she could say all day long, I think he's the one, but it's not until the man goes, that's my woman. We together, right? I guess we are together, right? So it's for us to do that. So in my journey of anything that I was doing, because I've been blessed to be on some big stages because of music. I've toured in Switzerland 4 times. I've been to a lot of different states. Out of 50, I've been to almost 40 of them, and in my lifetime. And so I've done a lot of major stage plays in the city of Chicago. Shout out to my Chicago folks, because that's where I'm from. And so my name have been in a lot of different newspapers, and like all of them, has been the best trio band, the best drummer, and all those different things. And I'm blessed that people esteem me that way. So you have to know that along the way came a lot of different after parties, green room parties, ballrooms, and I'm just sitting there like, I got to bring the person that I'm married to, and I'm not even sure if she would even be here because of what we're going through. So going through the divorce, so you can only imagine being asked, where is she? Where's the other person? And you have to sit up there and be like, we're not together. And then they're like, I'm so sorry. And then especially if you have some friends, you know, it's just
Yep.
crazy. So the shame, the embarrassment, don't want to come out. And I'm just like, this is extra hard because we don't have enough people that's explaining, having these type of podcasts, which I so commend you for doing, that can help people get free to say, even people like us go through some tumultuous different things,
Yeah.
and we don't get a day off, a day off, a
Right.
breakaway, a vacation from, so we can have time to heal. Now, of course, I'm suggesting that now, but if you have a lot of demands, because I was on demand a lot of demands, and so with a lot of demands and highly demanded and stuff like that, especially if it's money attached to it, because it was the way I was paying my bills and keeping my family afloat. So with all of those different things going on, constantly being put out there, and you don't have that person with you anymore. I've lost a lot of several different friends and associations of the different groups that I was in that would take sides with the woman because the man got to be the reason always. And I find myself asking God to help me with the bitterness that was growing, because I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm so sick of the societal norm that it has to be something that the man did for the relationship not to make it. That's
Yeah.
definitely, And then it was instantly. I had women tell me versus being sympathetic. It was like, "So what did you do?" Mm, okay. So I had to go deeper. I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't have the colorful story to say. Well, I was the one man that had an extra dip on the side, had a side chick. I had to go
Yeah.
stuff like this. I had to go a little bit deeper. On what I did, I ignored red and purple flags. Is what I did. So
Mm.
let's talk about the flags. Let's talk about the different things that I said I wouldn't do, and I did it anyway. Been stupid.
Yeah.
Let's talk about my patterns of saying that I wouldn't do this anymore, but I thought you would be different, and I still felt for it because my lust and my attraction fell before God's purpose and what He told me. So
Come
that
on.
competition. So all of those different things brought shame, 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 and I'm just like, I don't even want to even put myself out there. My last big, huge hoorah, I would say, that really put a lot of shame is to go into my third one, the third marriage, because here's the deal: when my second one failed, I had some time, to the point many people start falling off, and then a lot of people forgot that I was even married twice because the
Yeah.
second one, the second one, it was short lived. So they was like, you was married one time, right? I'm like, no, really two. Oh man. So the third one, after a while, I realized as you start maturing, you start growing into, you shouldn't put so much emphasis on caring what other people think, what they're gonna say, and all of that. So you're
Come
really
on.
kind of hoping that the third one, and I would love for you to kind of expound too. You're
Yes.
really hoping that the third one, as they say, well, the third one is a charm. I started believing all the hype of all the different idioms and all the different myths. And to see that as a fail, I'm like, I don't know too many people that tried a fourth time with success. So I'm really
Yeah.
ashamed. And my shame went with, it was a popular person with some that was on some popular networks, and my name was brought into there favorably. In one sense, I was cool when I was single, but I was married to them. It was like, oh man, must be a great, powerful couple. So now
Mm.
I'm around some executives that's nation and internationally known. Why? Because of the radio, television industry that I was being invited to and stuff like that. And now I'm writing books, so my name is on different platforms, and then I'm connected to who? Okay, oh wow, that's great. And so when that falls off, all the friendship that I connected, people start questioning me. Now I can't even hear from them. Now those doors are closed because of me saying yes to giving somebody else a chance. So when the man makes the decision to come out of it, I got to be the worst person. And I'm like, how do I bounce? So then I even move out of town to marry this person. So I uproot myself, bringing convenience, trying to bring them into my
Mhm.
life. Let's bring this powerful couple to. So you talking about shame?
Yeah.
It took me a long, what could probably have been an easy bounce back to come back to Arizona to get back in my proper place of maybe 3 or 4 months. Took me 2 years, almost 3 years to come back to where I'm supposed to be, to rebuild myself up and hoping that it would get better. And I was going through delusions and all kind of things, because the other thing that was fighting me is I said, I'm a relationship coach.
Come on.
And you hear people say, well, why don't you apply your advice to yourself? But I even realized even the advice to myself was not customized for me. My advice was always customized for everybody else. So even
Yeah.
that wouldn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
saying, to my mom, I said, I'm not doing it no more. Oh man, I was super angry. I'm not doing it. It costs me too much. It's like the enemy was like, I finally got him. His guards is down. He's been helping too many
Yeah.
people. He's been apostolic, so he helped build people all the time. But this is the area that he does not have success in.
Yes. Yes. When I
Shame.
say, woo, I can relate. It is literally like looking at the male version of myself.
I'm just bald, right?
So,
I just don't have any hair.
man, so when you
Man.
talk about that, almost kind of having to face the music alone. My third husband, when he left, he told me it was like a Saturday morning and I was about to get in the shower and he was just like, "Hey, can we talk?" And I'm like, "Sure." And in about a 18-minute conversation, he told me that he never wanted to be married. He didn't want to be a stepfather. This was not the life he wanted for himself, and he was leaving. And within 7 days, everything he owned was out of our house. Now, here's the kicker. He didn't say anything to nobody else. So I am working on staff. I am the person that is praying for you in the ministry line and for your marriage and your relationship and all the things. My husband's nowhere to be found. My pastor's trying to call him, other men from the church. He disappeared. And so I had to show up every Sunday,
Oh, yeah.
every Wednesday, with people going, "Hey, where's your husband?" And me going, "I don't know." And then, they do that nervous like, and I'm like, "No, I'm pro. I don't know." Like I literally don't know where he is. So having to face that by myself and then go through a year-long healing journey and God say, "I now want you to tell your story." Now, just like you, most people who knew me then knew I had been married one other time to my daughter's father. They didn't know this was my third divorce. And so, yeah, so for God to be like, "Hey, I want you to write this book and tell the world that you've been married 3 times." And when I say it was the most lackluster book launch you've ever seen. I think put out a post and I was like, "I wrote a book." And that was it. Because
Wow.
I was like, "God, how? Like how? Like why? Like how?" I just want to crawl into a corner because I feel like the biggest failure that had ever been,
Hmm.
similar to you, in all these other areas, my life seemingly was great. I had traveled around the country. I had traveled out of the country. I had purchased, not just purchased, built 3 different homes. I had a great career. So I had done all the things that on paper was like she got it together. And then here come these relationships.
Oh my goodness. Yes, we are
Man,
definitely twins right now.
yes.
You know, And I don't think an hour is going to be enough time. It might be a part two, part three with this one.
We about to do two parts.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about, though, kind of that next phase, right? So, we both have had that feeling, I think of like, how did I get here? How did my life get here? Especially when you look back over the journey and like the age that you're at that time, and you're just like, man. But I want to talk about, and if you're okay with going a little longer, I'm okay with going a little longer. So
Okay, we're going longer.
let's
Let's
do
help
it.
some people.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
let's do
So
it.
I want to talk about, what did the healing process, because that's a huge part of my platform, my voice, because I didn't know that you needed to recover from divorce, right? No one ever told me you need to recover. Most people was, well, just move on, just pray, or just find you someone else. But it wasn't until I was 41, 42 years old that I really understood that there's a healing journey. So I want to talk about,
Absolutely.
like, you're at this third divorce.
Hmm.
What is going through your mind, and what was the catalyst for you to say, okay, like, there's got to be something different. There's got to be something more.
Oh my goodness. So in my realization that my stuff had failed, I remember still being in the state of Georgia, which is where my ex still resides. I don't know if she still resides there, but that's where I had left. Because in all three of my situations, I had to be the man, talking about Shane, who had to stand up and initiate all three divorces and pay for them. And so I'm paying for three divorces. One of them we went half in. The other one I had to initiate it. They eventually caught on. The other one just signed papers. But my thing is, nobody left me, but they was okay with being the way it is. And I'm just like, this is not the abundant life that God has promised, right?
Yeah.
And so in the third situation, I'm sitting there. I'll never forget it. It took for me to have to leave and go, and God had me go through a wilderness of pretty much being homeless. Now,
Mm,
not the homeless where I'm by the bridge, sleeping by the wall with a cardboard box and
right.
things like that. And there's no shame to that because I work for the homeless industry as we speak. I got a big heart for them. I work with them 5 days a week right now. So I'm talking to the point that spelling out the word homeless, I was less than a home. And I was in Airbnbs for about 3 months, like five of them. I can only stay here for so long. I had to go. And so I'm pretty much living out of my car with maybe 10 to 12 days worth of clothes. I got a storage space, and a door opened up for me to cut hair at a barbershop where I can make cash. I don't have to have a committed job because God just will not open up any main doors for me to stay. And I'm like, what is this? So I had a lot of things. I was just like, God, what are you telling me and teaching me now? So having that discovery, that inner discovery of pain to face, I'm mad, I'm angry at me. And I said, let me just learn how to take responsibility on what I was able to do, because my decision on my end is how I got there. We don't have to answer the text phone, the text messages. We could just be like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to respond to that. But because I did respond, what made me do that? Where was I in my life? And I realized I had so much depression that was going on in other things. My guards was down. Now I'm open or a little bit more susceptible to other things. So I had to really look at what phase was I in when I was making these bad, big decisions, these big moves. And I realized I was trying to escape from something that I didn't
Mm,
realize I had success in. I just had a downfall in ministry. And what was the open opportunity was some other lady to validate me in that moment. And I'm thinking, well, that's the answer. And I'm attracted to you. But all the other things, I'm like, I know better. I'm seeing some phases of it, but it don't look that big. So I was convincing myself, what this is not that bad. But what helped me come to those realization? Yeah, but it's not that good either. So let me just focus on what's good, what's pleasant, what's joyful, all the things that we talk about in scripture. Because let me tell you, I had to learn God differently.
yeah. That's
Oh
so
yeah.
true.
I had to look at God differently. I'd my faith was there, but my trust in my ability shot.
Yeah.
I was telling people I can't give you any counseling because I have too many fails in my own life. Who would listen to a failed person to give them success? So I had some
Come
people that
on.
was telling me it is because you had the fails that would bring success. I had a hard time looking at the inference part of the inward part,
Yeah.
because what I realized, society loves to talk about the success story, and then we give them the little pain of how I got there, and that's how you can afford to talk about it. So all of this stuff, I was like, I really didn't want to have that story. Oh man,
Yeah.
and I had to talk to some other people that was married before, that was able to walk me through just personal healing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just need to get healed as a man, as a person,
Yes.
not the relationship. But I also realized I was grieving, which is the other part. So I know that you talk about the recovery of divorce. I didn't realize until God brought me back to one of my female pastors, who told me, she said, you know that whenever you go through a divorce and the divorce died, I mean, when the marriage died, there's a grieving that happens. Now, here it
Yes.
is. Thank God for my studies in grieving management and psychoeducation, mental health. I said, okay, let me deal with all the losses. So when you feel like you haven't won anymore, that loss is a rip in the heart. The covenant has been broken. You let God down. Look what you put your own self in. All of these different bullets I
Yeah.
had to walk through. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And I'm just like, what woman, he go to me, I said, what woman is going to take a man that's going to be like, man, you can't get yourself together? You don't know how to pick nobody? So I really didn't feel like I could afford to do that. So I was even told to go ahead and write a book. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's going to really put me out there. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, ugh. So a lot of revelations in healing came through. And I'm like, all right, I don't know how long this is going to take. And what God would do with me is, when I'm hungry for it, He'll speed out the healing as long as I'm consistent and I'm free. I didn't realize
Yeah.
how much bondage I was in, that I was punishing myself from past fails, that it was spilling over. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be the person, man, that got a vault full of fails and all this other stuff. I could teach from that place what not to do. But what does healing looks like? What does healthy looks like? Because healing is in the word healthy. Heal thy. That's healthy. That's how you spell it. And so a lot of stuff, I'm just like, this is some good stuff. So what I would do is, versus teaching it and projecting it, I would apply it to me and get quiet. And
Mm.
that really helped me. And then I found myself, I said, okay, now I'm kind of questioning myself. And I was like, wait a minute, God, did I miss some couple of people that I could have dated that was better than this? And what God showed me, because you start putting the real work in now. And at that time, I wasn't early 41 like you. I was like mid 40s.
Mm.
Now, so I had that going on. And then I have a grown daughter. So while your daughter's 17 now, right? My daughter is 31. So imagine
Mm.
those questions with those relationships. And she's watched me go
Yeah.
through all of those. And she's like, Dad. And I made up my mind. I said, everything that I have, I'm going to show you what not to be, what healthy looks like. And I'm going to set you free, because I don't want you to have the sins of the father on your life. We're going to break all that junk off. And everything that I can show you what could be preventative, let me teach you, because this is what I have
Yeah.
to do for me. So it is a lonely, it has been a lonely thing of healing, but I had to ask God to protect me in my loneliness. And I realized some of the underlying things is being lonely, because I was a trailblazer. Trailblazers and trendsetters, pioneer people, they operate a lot alone. I didn't have that type of teaching, because I had
Yeah.
people that was always in crowds and cohorts and groups. I'm like, well, where's the help at? Where's the support at? And I was trying to go back to people that could give me those sound advice, and God wouldn't use them to help me. He just
Yeah.
wouldn't. Because guess what? My stories was helping them in their own divorces and my leadership. Man, can you help me out
Yeah.
with this one? Because you've been through it before. I'm like, I'm not proud of it because I've been through it before.
Yeah.
But this is what I
Yeah.
wouldn't do. And they was like, so they would take the advice, celebrate what I've given them, would not give an offering or bless me, knowing that I'm in a poor situation. I don't have any money. I got my gifts, talents, and God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I,
that's what
I
I had
think
to.
that's the space where God uses us the most, right?
I
I
have to
want to
agree.
I want to circle back a little bit to the grieving process, because much like you, it wasn't until this third divorce, and I was reading a book by Lisa Turkhurst, and I really enjoyed just her transparency. So she is I would consider a pastor, well-known pastor who went through a very public divorce, and she wrote two books. One, I believe it's called It's Not Supposed to Be This Way, and that's when her and her husband were kind of in that separation, and I think she was kind of believing for her marriage. And then she wrote another one that is escaping me right now, that's really good. It's about boundaries. It's called Good Boundaries and Good Grief, or Good Grief and Good Boundaries, something like that. But
Okay.
this is the book that she wrote after their divorce. And I remember in the first book, there was a quote that she said that just, you know how they say, like, it hit you like a ton of bricks. And she
Yeah,
was saying that in order for us to kind of move on to accept our new life, we have to accept that our old life is dead and gone. And I
that's
was
real
like,
good.
oh my gosh. And so I have this saying that divorce is a death, but it's not a death sentence. And
I like that.
so, very much like you, I went through this grieving process to the point where about 6 months after my divorce, I went to Sedona. So, if you guys are familiar with Arizona, we've got this place called Sedona, beautiful red rock. I love hiking up there. And I hiked up a mountain and I said, I am having a funeral for my old life. I am
Yeah,
having a funeral for those old patterns,
yeah.
because funerals are for the living, they're not for the dead. And for me, it was really kind of drawing this line on the mountain, this line in the sand of saying, I will never have that life ever again. Right.
Okay.
But when someone dies, when something dies, we grieve. And it was the first time after 20 years that I really grieved those relationships. I
Hmm.
grieved the whether it was dreams or visions that I had for those relationships. And then there were other things. There were other things that I realized I had not grieved. The death of my mother. My mother died of a drug overdose when I was 23. And
Mm.
I was the one who had to take her off life support because my entire family, aunts, uncles, grandmother, were too intoxicated to make the decision. And
Wow.
so, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The hospital called me and they were like, "Hey, so your mom is brain dead and you have to make the decision." I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" And so I realized that I had never really grieved her death. There were so many things that I never grieved. And so you're right. I think what's healthy is grieving the relationship in a safe space with safe people. And it's interesting too that you said that there were people in your life that you thought were going to be the ones that God was going to allow to help you, but it was different people. And I just think that's the way God sets us up, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had a lot of different insightful moments. I had to really, really open up myself because, of course, when you're in those moments, you protect your heart at all costs.
Yes.
You being very selective on who you can be a confidant in and who can console you. I remember going back to a few female friends that I was trying to just to see if this is somebody I should date who was available again. You know how that goes. Who's
Yep.
available again?
Circling the block.
Yeah, circling the block, recycling, I call them, those
Recycle.
recycles, right? And I remember a woman of God prophesied to me, and God, you get those words, you'd be like, I really wish I could forget hearing this, but God would not let me just ignore it. And I remember, dear Lord, telling this woman of God, she said, and she was naming people that she remembered just being a sister to me. She said, this person, don't touch that one when you go back to Arizona. This person right here, God says to stay out of it. This person, and what did I do? It was familiar and it was comfortable.
Yep.
And I was trying to be around those that I felt that was safe, that's proven themselves to be safe before. But as you were saying, what goes with the old person and releasing the old life, that stuff is dead. I didn't include those with that. I was just talking about what
Okay.
Cortez was by himself, right? And so you're right. When it comes to those funeral moments, I can actually say that I found myself getting back attached to water. I said I need to be around the lake. I need to be around the family cruises because those were the
Okay.
moments that I would get rocks and seashells, have those moments in the water, throw rocks and just release stuff or release stuff. And then that's when I
Mm,
was able to have my breakthrough to just look at those things as my release party,
I
releasing
love
the
it.
old and things like that. So those were like my funerals. And then the more I talked about it, the more I got to the point I was like, okay, at some point, Cortez, you need to just say, okay, that person is dead. Moses is dead now, Joshua. Now
Come
it's
on.
time to move on. So you can only cry so much. So I was like, God, heal me from the inside out. Let me learn the lesson. But if somebody asked me, I had to come to another conclusion. I said, everything can happen to us, but it's for somebody else. Who is this for? And I don't know
Yeah.
who it's for. And so a lot of those different epiphanies, moments of revelation, I was just like, this got to be something big. And then I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So I got to the point I was like, you know what? Let me just come to my own conclusion. Here I go. I said, let me come to my own conclusion that I think God wants to be single for a long time. I'm just going to focus on making kingdom money and help a
Come
lot of
on.
people because it's not for me. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe because I said maybe that whole marriage card is not in the cards for me. So I just had some own conclusions that even God just said, I'm just going to check it right there. I'm just going to check. But I had to realize even in that, that was still part of my funeral because that's three people. And then even a few of the people that I've dated, I was trying to just see if something was there. And I was like, I realized that I couldn't even hang around them that long. And they would get
Yeah.
mad at me like, oh my God, you got married on me again. I was like, no, what I had to come to a conclusion is that when God says he has something for you, who's to say that that man or a woman is not part of the equation? And just because that happened in your past, we can't punish new people because of so all of that time, we have to put the work in. So I had to be willing to put the work in through healing. I put myself around a lot of therapeutic people who specialize in therapy and healing, not just church, not just scriptures.
Come
We need
on.
we need both. You got to have some practicums. You have to have some relatable things, and just to see what are your patterns. What do you normally go after? So I had to go through a serious amount of, as a man, of detoxification because I
Yes.
realized we have a lot of power in what we say. It's not a lot of us that's really doing it the right way, and I just
Yeah.
choose to do it the right way. Yeah,
That's good. That's
I
good.
know I said a lot, but you know it's the
No, that's
journey.
good.
You
That's
know,
good. And I think that is what, as a society, we skip over is the journey, right? We
right.
see a couple who is, hashtag engaged, hashtag relationship goals. We see the beautiful wedding, we see the honeymoon, and then all of a sudden they're divorced, and then all of a sudden they're with someone else, right? And
Right.
I don't think we talk enough about the healing journey. What is that in between? What should it look like, right?
Hmm.
So you've been on this healing journey. I get it. I spent many of years by myself, therapy, coaching, ice cream, pastors, family, praying, travel, the healing journey. And I like to say that word journey because it
Yes, it is.
truly is a journey from, like, I believe, transforming you from like one state to a completely different person, right?
Oh yeah.
It
Oh yeah.
should transform you. If you say that you were on a healing journey and you're the same that you were 6 months ago, you didn't go far.
No,
That
you want
wasn't a
to
journey.
know it's a healing circle.
That was
You know,
you're just walking
you
in
know,
a healing
yeah,
circle, right? We
yeah. It's
need
a
to be on
relapse. It's a relapse for real.
a
Because
journey.
you took a relapse. Lapse. It's a relapse. That's the
Right.
mental health part of me because the whole relapse thing is okay. I know where I started. I know where I want to be. But if I'm right back where I was, and let's just say my clothes are different and it's dressed up different, you're still the same. It's just a different outfit that day. Your attire
Yeah.
is different. I love what you said
Yeah.
about journey because I find myself alone a journey. I start writing. Of course, I write books. And in
Mhm.
my writing books, I was writing out my moments in poetry form of that person that I was dealing with. I wrote out how they seemed to be like this. And then as I was growing, and this is after me coming out of divorce and all of that, I was like, wow, I want to hang out with you because I had some interesting things that started happening to me. I had women that was interested in me in an old season. And when I became free again, they were with men and was still trying to get with me and they live with them.
Mm-mm-mm.
Wow. And the reason why I love to talk about
Mm-mm.
it from a man's perspective, because many women don't think that these stories exist. No,
Yeah.
that can't be. You sure? No, I don't date men. I'm talking about beautiful women that got it going on,
Yeah.
that that was still winking over here, wasn't really happy with who they moved in with. A few of them even blamed me for moving on with somebody else. So this is what I went on and did for me. I'm like, I'm not
Mm-mm.
responsible for where you make your decisions. Everybody are where they are because of their decision making. So I'm not the
Yeah.
reason. I didn't inspire you to move on. You. So then I was just like, no. And what happened is I realized I said, you know what? Am I ready to date? Am I ready to go out different? Not with the recycles and all of that. So I had to go to that
Yeah.
stage. Because I realized in dating, I don't know if we're there yet in this part of the segment.
No, that yeah, we're you're right on target.
Okay, okay. I realize this is good. I realized that once you go through the healing process, you ask yourself, am I open to date anyone? Right? And you
Mm.
won't know that until you take a chance. In church, we say, step out on faith, walk on water, right? In the streets, we say, let's take a bet. Let's see what happens. And I realized dating is not just collecting data. That's true. But I realized what God was showing me is when you go out on dates, you're really learning more about yourself than what you're learning about them.
Come on.
And it was like, what do you mean? Because you really learn if you are really open. Are you really available? Because you could be single and not available. That was a whole nother thing. God was like, yeah, everybody that's single, not available. You just have a
Mm-mm.
single status. Because you could be a whole person, be like, I'm available for a relationship.
Yeah.
Huh, got it. So, and then you can realize how impatient you probably still are and how you really selfish. You're not really a giver. So why even put yourself flirting with people knowing that you're not a giver? You're really a taker. I learned that in relationships, and the way I had to grow up, we commonly say relationships is give and take. I learned is give and give.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah. Yeah.
If one person is doing all the taking and I'm doing all the giving, that's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Now, if you say receiving is different from taking. I receive because I consider like, oh, thank you for that. I'm going to acknowledge it. I see some. So that's receiving. But if you're saying relationship is give and take, I was like, that's not true. Because if that's the case, I would be still broken. I would not be open to no other relationship because I felt like as much as I gave, uprooted myself, moved somebody in, moved them into my house, borrow money. And these are real examples in all three marriages
Yeah.
that I've done to give. What did they do? Take from me, wanted me to be a daddy to their sons. Because keep in mind, my pattern, every marriage that I had a son.
Yep. Patterns.
And my sister reminded me, she said, I thought that you said that you did not want to get with anybody else that had a child. So I started compromising my
Mm-hmm.
standards that I set. I went back on all the words that I was looking for because I stopped trusting that God can have this person for me customized that exists for Cortez.
Yeah.
I was like, it
Yeah.
ain't happening fast enough. So maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe my standards are too high. So
Yeah.
now we're in a society now, everybody wants to say, well, maybe you should lower your standards. Why? God gave you standards. Why are you just going to just take stuff off the shelf when he's telling you to build your shelf and put things properly up there? The right person will help you grab it.
Yeah.
Or
Come on now.
find a letter to help you step up and get it because they want to support
Come on
whatever
now.
you're reaching for. Come on.
Look, look, that I am a short person. That is the way to my heart. Go on and reach the stuff on the top shelf.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm short too, but I find a way to get it. I'm like, I'm going to get that, whether I have to climb up there and
Right.
get it, I'm going to
Right.
get it for whoever needs it. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Right.
so a lot of that stuff in the dating. So I realized so I started going on the dates, but I also realized when God started seeing that I was willing to do it, he said, well, I'm going to let you go to the extreme of even what you think you might like. So I had
Yeah.
those. One of the most powerful things that happened to me, I remember having a crush on two women that I had not seen in 30 years. Have
Mm-hmm.
not seen them at all. Couldn't even reach them. It's like God just having them pop out of the sky. I'm like, wait a minute. Is that so that I used to have a crush on when I was 11? Has never happened all the 3 years that I was married. But in this part, it was something about this phase that I was in to make sure that I've searched, not even wondering or just guessing. I wonder how this person is looking at this part of her life. Is she still alive and all that? So I had two people that I was able to meet in person out of town and realize nothing was there. I was like, God, thank you for getting that out of my system. But I
No,
realized
that's
I'm not even
good.
there.
That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
good. So
yeah,
I truly believe that God will, and I hate to use the word test, but I truly believe that God will allow us to see where we're at. And it's
yeah,
up to us to be honest about it. And I'll tell you how your story resonates. So I've been single little over a year at the time of this recording. I didn't start seriously dating until, gosh, maybe 3 or 4 years after my divorce. I really took some time to just, spend time with myself, spend time with God. And like you, when I initially started dating, I was dating with this perspective that I wanted to learn about myself. I wanted to learn about men, and I wanted to have fun with the hopes that I'll meet someone that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
that's
What I
fair.
did not say was that I was looking for my next husband. And I'll tell you why. Is because, particularly with women, we have the tendency to live in a fantasy when it comes to dating. And especially if you grew up in a culture or society where like every man that's attracted to you or you're attracted to them must be your husband. And
Right.
so I intentionally did not start dating with this verbiage of, well, I'm looking for a husband, right? And so about 2 years ago, almost three at this point, about 3 years ago, I met a guy and I felt like we were very compatible. I felt like he was healed. I was healed. And so we started this relationship. And I'll tell you, on paper, the relationship looked great. It was by far, hands down, the healthiest relationship I had ever been in my life. And when I would tell people that, they're like, "But hold on, y'all y'all are not together." And I'll tell you, I had gotten to this season where I knew that he and I had some fundamental differences. And I remember praying about it and I was like, "God, what?" First of all, I felt it, right? And in so many instances before, and I don't know if you can relate to this,
I can
you
relate.
feel that nudge and you
Yeah, oh
ignore
yeah.
it,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's not that bad. Um, I interviewed on a recent podcast a lady named Rhonda Gibson, and she equated it to you having like your favorite dinner, but there's a little bit of poop on the plate. And you just gonna ignore the poop, you gonna cover it up because it's like your favorite dinner, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in this relationship and I'm starting to get like that nudge, like something is off. And so I remember praying about it, and God said, "I'm going to show you what your life could be like with him." And over like the next 30 days, I started to see different things. He started to say, and then let me say this, there was nothing inherently bad or wrong, right? But what I knew God was saying was, I want to know that I can trust you with what I'm saying and that you fully trust me. Because once again, on paper, this was a great relationship. And to be honest, it was a very good relationship. But as that 30 days happening and I started to see the things, I was like, I get it, God. I get it, God. And once again, nothing glaring, but it was just enough to know that this was not God's best. And
Right.
so I made the decision to end the relationship. And I remember God saying, "You got it right this time." And
Thank
what
you,
he was
Lord.
referring to, right? What he was referring to was in my first marriage, as I was going to my wedding, God was like, "Don't do this." It was an audible voice. And I started crying, and my best friend's like, "Oh my gosh, you're crying." And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, because I don't know how to get out of this. Because God is like, "Don't do this." And I'm thinking to myself, I got it. It's cool. It'll be okay. It'll be all right. That little poop on the plate, it'll be okay.
I can relate. I can
The
relate.
second marriage, his mother took me to lunch and she was like, "Do not marry my son." And not in a sense of like he's a bad person, but it was just he had just gotten out of a divorce like a year before. He wasn't fully healed. I was still having issues working in ministry. There were some things happening there, right?
Right.
And she told me, "My son is not ready. Do not marry him." What did I say? "It'll be okay. It'll be all right." Got married. The third time, there was no audible voice. There wasn't a person saying, "Don't do this." But I saw things. And I remember after that last divorce, I was out walking and I was like, "God, I'm mad at you and I'm not talking to you." Like all the things, right?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
I got it. I thought I did everything right this time and you should have stopped it. Like I was mad. I was like, "This is on you." And God was like, "I tried to stop you the first two times and you didn't listen. So now you had to learn the hard way." And I was like,
Yeah, those payments are
"Man,
real. Those
come on.
payments, paying for it
Come on.
is
Come
real,
on."
because we always think it's supposed to be delivered or a way God's supposed to say it. Because from everything you just said, the nudge, Holy Spirit pulling, somebody audibly telling you by just natural, hey, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm not saying this is good for you. I know my son. I know all the details that you don't know, and then we still go do it. Of course, I said the stupid stuff, and then this one is like, I don't know what to tell you, but to let you just see.
Yep.
So all the senses, feel, touch, taste, smell. Yeah.
All of them.
So, and God is like, I'm gonna deliver you, but it's gonna be at a cost of what you put yourself in. Those were those healing epiphanies that you kept hearing me talk about. How many things have I put myself in? How many things that you created? Because I wasn't over there, I was over here. So
Yeah.
getting out of position to get something, as you were saying, food on the plate, and realize, yeah, that one little spot is supposed to turn you off because it's because now your plate is contaminated.
Yes.
Here's what we do. Oh, it ain't that bad. I'm just gonna go ahead and just clean that part off and still eat the
Yep.
spaghetti.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
my mom said this to me.
When God is trying to tell you, I have an even better dinner for you. Like, just throw
Yeah.
this one in the trash, right? Like, just throw this one in the trash. And I truly feel like that morning there were two things that on the inside was happening. One, because our marriage was terrible. As he was talking, I heard a small voice go, "Man, it's finally over." And then the second thing I heard was, "You done now? You done doing it your way now? You done?" And it was just kind of like
Oh
how when you talk to your kids and your kids do
yeah.
something stupid that you told them not to do, and you're like, "All right, you
Yes.
done? You finished?" And that's how I felt in that moment. I felt like God was like, "All right, you done doing it your way now?" And I'm like, "All right, God." Because that was the one that hurt. I had had a hand in ending the first two relationships. This is
Hmm.
the one that blindsided me. This is the one that I would say had the worst, fallout. Like, this was the one that hurt. And I felt like God was like, "I'm going to let you hurt enough that you learn it. Like, it's not going to destroy you, but I'm going to let you hurt enough where hopefully
Hmm.
you learned your lesson." So
We
I
have a
want
lot
to
to
talk
mirror
about,
here. We have a lot
yeah,
of them to mirror here. But go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm
No,
going with
I
your
was gonna
flow.
say I wanna talk about now because you're married.
I am. I am.
And so if you guys didn't know Dr. Cortez, it's like surprise, surprise ending. Um, but I want to talk about now the difference, right? Because from talking to you and as a relationship coach, I talk to a lot of people, and I can tell you, just as I'm sure you can, I can talk to someone and I can immediately know, like, yeah, you're not healed. Like, no, you're
Hmm.
not ready. But
Same here.
I want to talk about that process. So, what was different with your wife?
What was different? Let me start with me. I had to really be calm. And I usually kind of do this whenever I teach. I literally break down words a lot in my teaching, anybody that knows me. So the word be calm. God showed me, he said, well, anytime you spell out the word be means to exist. Calm is you on your way. You're traveling, you're putting the work in. If you stop, then you're not coming, you're at a standstill. So I had to become a different man in every way. And I said, God, help me, detox me, deliver me, heal me, set me free. Not just in word and scripture. We know it was already done on the finished works of Jesus according to scripture. We know that. But I want to be applicable in human form, whereas it makes sense to me the way I need to see it. So I had to really, really look at things differently. I said, okay, what is the common thread? I had to get rid of the word type, TYPE. We always talk
Come
about my
on.
type, my type. I said, my types, what I've picked, it doesn't work. I am horrible. The proof is in the pudding. This is my track record. That's historical. And I had to really just put a different monument. I went from funerals to a monument. I said, this is where the buck stops right here.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, how would I look at it different? I said, and the only way I can be different and to be changed is I had to become different. All right, I established that. But I had to look at it different too, which means I had to be open to what is great for me, not just what is fun to me.
Mm,
Right? Okay. So spent a lot of time with that. Spent a lot of time with a lot of videos. I did a lot of stuff just to kind of observe things that would probably have learned, used to kind of attract me. I was just like, I'm not really moved by that. What's the underline?
yeah.
Go further than just the outer appearance. What kind of heart do you? Now I'm dealing with character. What kind of character that's lasting long. And then God started sending me around people that was talking about character a lot. I'm like, well, I'm big on character development because I could teach it, I could do that. And God was like, go back to what's in good character that you respect. because respect and love are family members. Whatever you respect, you love. If you love somebody, you respect. So I realized I didn't have a lot of self-respect that was consistent. I had it, but it wasn't consistent because I put it on pause and make modifications based upon the whoever I was with. And God was like, stop doing that. All right. Then I said, okay, what would be different on this one? So stop looking at body type, hair, and all that. And God was like, I'm going to raise up the desires that I had already put in you already. Okay, great. And I was like, has it matched what you've had so far? I realized I have never picked what I've been wanting. I've been picking what was convenient at the time. And then I was trying to sanctify it so I won't be a lustful man because I'm really a relationship man. And when I was in
Mm.
single spaces, I was trying to be longer in that place just to avoid being confronted with love. I had to realize what love was. I said, well, I know God is love. And God was like, well, what's the opposite of love? We used to say hate. God was like fear, because the only way you can cast out fear is with love. Perfect love casts out fear. So that's what it is. Most people scared to love because they're fearful to be broken again. And I was like, all right. So I had to do all these self-reflections and things like that. My point is, by the time I did all this work on me, I was not attracted to my old norm. And then I was tested with like certain circles that were normal. Hey man, you see her? And I usually be like, man, she's nice. My maturity raised up, which is another part I had to raise in. And I used to be like, I can recognize that somebody's very attractive, but it doesn't mean I want to go further. It's like, man, you really different. I got to be different from the inside. I'm not easily moved by that because I had so much damage. Like you said, my stuff, it felt like it was long seasons of being able to feel what I put myself in, like long enough not to take me away or, as you were saying, demolish me or damage me, but
Yeah.
long enough to feel it. I had to live in it, swim in it, see what it feels like to start over from scratch. Because I had so many start overs. I said, this is
Yeah.
painful. This is called, yeah. And then God was like, let me show you what healing looks like. So he was showing me some sisters that I was not attracted to, but they were very attractive women, but I was not attracted to them. I said,
Yeah.
okay, God, give me that type of regular lifestyle that I can see a sister like yourself. Like, if you're a very attractive woman, I can acknowledge that. But can I go further than you? God was like, he started giving me an appetite. She can only be your sister because she's not yours.
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
had to start living that way. And it took a lot of time to be like, all right, how can I manage me better? By the time I started doing that, doors were opening up again. And then I play drums, right? So this
Hmm.
band that usually is, I play around with a lot of different men. And then on the scene, you have those that's very lustful. You have those that got a relationship and still lustful. And I was just like, yeah, I can't live like none of them because they didn't have to pay the payments that I had to pay to suffer.
Come
If I
on.
agree with them, that means that I'm still going back to the old Cortez.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was tested a lot that I just didn't have the appetite for. I found myself leaving the areas. I didn't realize that God was bringing those scriptures, shun away from the very appearance of evil. I mean, all kind of stuff was coming back. I was like, all
Yeah.
right, all right, right. Meeting the lady I have now showed me this is what beautiful looks like from the inside out. And she's still going to be beautiful as a natural woman anyway,
Come on.
without all that extra stuff. And I was like, wow. And I realized I was more intellectual. I said, I'm intellectually connected to her, spiritually connected to her. This is characteristic stuff. All the other stuff is just, to me, it's just icing on the cake, or they say cherry on top of the root beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the bonus stuff and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And so I said, that's a different type of attraction. And God had to remind me, right, those are the things that you usually just walk past
Yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
appeal. And I was like,
Yeah.
you got to be kidding me. And then God would start telling me, I'm going to start sending you around people that you need them for something. But this is a person that you can definitely embrace and have covenant with for the rest of your life, where she
Yeah.
is now. And she was, so I met her when she was whole already, but God had to make sure I was a whole person too. So
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay, now I can say I can finally live 100% and 100%. Not on 100% and then I go ahead and get with 50%. Now I'm back to being broken. I'm back half again.
That's
And
so
I was
good.
like, okay, all right. So all of that brokenness and stuff like that. And I realized it led me to a person that I have never met, didn't see them coming. I can't say that God just put it in my face. I will say I was in a place where it paraded across me. And I was like, who is this person? I wonder why I'm attracted to them.
Yeah.
And I realized it's not because they had cleavage out, they had big hips, all this other stuff that we men normally go through. It was one of
Right.
those. I was in conversation with a group of people on my break, on my music break, in between the band having a break. And I was just like, I feel like I need to just get her email address. And I realized I said, I can't light it because it makes me want to write to her. But I thought it was just business. I said, there's an attraction there, but I can't go past. I can't look like nothing on my past. And on the first date, it meant something because it was a date that landed on me opening up my business that God told me to reopen. And she was the
Okay.
only person that came, and it became a date night. So
Aw.
my stuff threw me completely off of what
Mhm.
how my old patterns would be and stuff like that. But even the first date didn't happen till like almost 2 minutes later, not 2 minutes, 2 months later, because why? Cortez called COVID around other people that I was supposed to stop doing business with. He told me to leave these. Yeah, I called COVID at during the first strand when people was
Yeah.
dying, and I could barely
No.
even walk up my townhouse out here in Arizona. And I remember just meeting her and some of the old recycles. I was like, hey, can you bring me some orange juice? Can you bring me this stuff? Everybody's busy. And God was like, the one I have for you will be able to be somebody that's going to be with you and they want to be with you. And then God had this woman of God out of Chicago. She said, the one that God has for you will be somebody that if you get sick, they would jump in the ambulance with you. Then my mom called me. You talk about trash? My mother said, whatever you do, don't give up on love. She said, you just make sure that you don't never go back in the garbage can and get nobody else.
Come on.
I said, explain that one. She said, what goes in the garbage can? Things that people don't want anymore. Or they let it sit up and get molded. And they be like, oh, it's trash, garbage. Or, as you were saying, well, maybe I can go back in the garbage and get the mold off of it and stuff because this is a nice
Yep.
piece of bread.
Yep.
This is a really good piece of dope sourdough bread. It's fresh. So I'm going to doctor it up. And I had those patterns in the past, try to help and doctor up people that were not whole, didn't have
Yeah.
any goals and dreams already.
Yeah.
I was going after potential and maybe I can help you. Maybe I'm just like, what am I doing?
Come on. Yeah.
Captain, I'll let you
Look,
finish.
let me tell you, I was the queen of dating potential. Like, I
Potential, potential,
saw
potential.
so much potential that they didn't want to be that it was
Yeah,
ridiculous. I was
yeah.
the queen of dating potential.
And why do we do that? Why do we do that? I know we have the gift and the whole weight and the oil to build people, but I think when it comes to our own personal journey, we need to come out of that place of career and be like, all right, God, so this is what I need to do to keep me together. And I teach this stuff. Because why do we do that? All potentials. I realized I said everybody has potential. Would you do something about it? Probably not.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
No. I've realized that it's a few things, right? I learned this a few years ago and it was just such a epiphany to me, especially for women, because we tend to want to try to control situations. And what I learned is that you try to control what you don't trust. And what
That
I
is true.
realized was that I didn't trust my partners. I knew that they weren't financially responsible. I knew that they weren't emotionally well. And so we try to control what we don't trust. And that
What we
goes
don't
back
trust.
to who God has for you. And when we circle the block, when we recycle, when we don't listen to wisdom, we are telling God, I don't trust that you have what's best for me. So I am going to try to control the different relationships and try to control who I'm with. And I essentially feel like we're telling God, I don't trust you.
That's exactly what it is. I didn't get to that because I want to make sure I follow your marching
Oh,
orders
you
and your
good.
cadences. But that's exactly what it is. It is because of that. Now I have to say this: the woman that I had so many confirmations on that she is the wife, because I was trying to look for all the different experiences that I found in some of my other friends. Oh man, she'd be right in front of you. I'm like, well, there's been a lot of people in front of me, like crowds. It
Yep.
don't mean that they're in front of me. So I could not go with none of the things that I heard other people go through. So that
Yeah.
was the other part of being detox, my thinking, my mindset, and all of that, right? And I was like, okay. So with my wife now, I was like, this is different. And she was like, why is this different? I said, you have no idea. And I was trying to bring up my past stuff. It was so whole and beautiful and healed that I wasn't even allowed to even spill on her like that. She just said,
Yeah.
"Okay, tell me everything else that's that you had in your past." I never forget the night that I did the business opening in my barber suite and stuff. I said, now that I feel better, I said, I don't want to let the night go. I said, let me just get this out of the way. I said, are you dating anybody? I'm just blunt with it because that's
Come
where I
on,
was in my
Dr.
life. I
Cortez.
said, are you dating anybody right now? She said, dating. There is somebody that I'm dating. There's somebody else that I'm considering. But, she said, but in a relationship, no. I said, I like how free this is so far. She said, well, what about you? I said, I have entertained someone. I think I'm dating, but I don't think they want it. And so I was referencing these recycles because I was just recently told that, yeah, I think you might want somebody else, more flags. I'm like, well, why am I even here?
Yeah.
Comfortable, familiar. Haven't seen nothing else better. That's what we do, which is so sad. We would stay in stuff because we don't see it. We just keep entertaining it just to have a filler. Whole different
Yeah.
subject, right?
Filling the void.
So filling the void. So when we said that, I said, okay, so we've been frank. I said, now can we go sit somewhere? Now, mind you, this is still during the time when people are away from people. This is COVID. This is mask still on. And I'm trying to remember what her mouth and teeth look like because it's a mask, but most of the time I'm just like, well, this is hard. When I met you with your girlfriends, you guys would kind of have like a celebration for her birthday. So
Yeah.
we wound up sitting somewhere, we outside because they didn't have no room at the Cheesecake Factory over here in Biltmore. And
Okay.
I remember she was like, well, tell me a little bit more about you. I said, let me just tell you some of the things that most people don't want to keep talking about. I said, I've been married 3 times and I have a grown daughter. Does any of that
Yep.
stuff
Let
turn
me
you
get it
off?
out the way.
And she was like, no. You'd be like, no. Okay, what's the catch? She was like, no. She said, tell me more. She was so intrigued of my stories. And I was like, okay, this is going too good. I said, so you're not turned off? She said, let me just ask you this. Can you say that you're healed right now? I said, this is some intellectuals. I was like, yes. She said, can you tell me that you've learned from the stuff that you've been healed from? I said, yes. She said, why do we have to spend more time on it? Drop mic, shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was open to hear this stuff a couple more times after that. But she said, as much as I appreciate what you've been through, I can't connect to your past to even support it that long. She said, but what I am grateful for, it has made you to the man that I'm attracted to today. And I'm interested to have a future with you. But I don't want to wait a long time. Oh, that was so mature. It just checked this man. And here's the deal. That language is the way I had started talking before I met her. I just haven't met nobody that could talk with me like that. That
Yeah.
was the appeal. God was like, that's the character that you can connect with. Everybody else that knew me for years and see that I had fails, I realized I was too busy trying to prove to them that I was healed from the last person.
Come on.
You sure you're not
Yeah.
over that person? And I'm just like, I don't even think about them. You don't believe it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
like another 6 months you're gonna change. And the guy was like, I told you not to go back to the recycles and past people because they're not gonna understand. I've advanced you in your healing because you put time in. Not only did I advance you in your healing, you've trumped even where you even met them years ago. You've trumped them
Yeah.
because they are stuck where I have to advance you because you said yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I truly believe that healing can recognize healing. Like
it
healed
it will.
recognizes healed. And once you are truly healed, like I said, I can have a 5-minute conversation with the man
Oh
and
yeah.
no, this ain't it. This ain't
Yeah.
it. You know immediately when someone is truly healed. And I think that the times when a lot of us say, well, I wasn't sure. No, you were sure. You just
You
didn't
were
want to
sure.
listen
Yeah.
to Holy Spirit. You didn't want to listen to your gut instinct. You didn't want to listen to that small, still voice. Like, I truly feel like in most cases, that God will allow us to see what we need to see. The question is, are we going to make the right decision? And that's what goes back to the relationship I was in previously. Was I feel like God was saying, all right, let me see if I can trust you now. Let me
Oh yeah.
see, because everything, like I said, everything on paper, everything looked good. It looked like the right choice. We've all heard it said this, right? Everything that's good ain't God. And I do think that it was good, but I know for a fact that it wasn't God. And I feel like God was saying, all right, you going to listen this time? You going to
Oh
listen this
yeah.
time? Right?
Oh yeah.
So, as much as I would love to keep talking,
You're tired of talking about this love when love comes and stuff like that.
I know, but this is what I wanted. I want people to hear what this looks like in real life, right?
Yeah.
You said something a little bit earlier, and I've gotten this before, and it honestly doesn't bother me now, but I'll have people say things like, "Well, how can you be a relationship coach and you've had 3 failed marriages?" And I laugh it off because the first thing I think is, "Well, at least I can tell you what not to do." So, but I want to share these journeys because one thing that I have learned doing the work that I do is that you and I, unfortunately, are not anomalies. There are so many people that I know that have gone through multiple failed, and not even, we talk about divorce, but just that person that's in the habitual toxic relationship, right? And so, what I really
Hmm.
wanted us to share tonight on this episode is that what does the true journey look like, right? For healing.
Right.
And
Right.
you have, found love again, which I believe is true love, right? We talk about what's true love. I believe it's true love, a God kind of
It's
love.
definitely true love.
But I wanted to share that there's a journey to it, right? That it's not
Yes.
we broke up and I dated someone 2 weeks later. Like, it might take years, it might take months, it might take therapy, it might take counseling, it may take all those things, but you can get there, right? You
Yes.
can be healed.
You can get to. Yeah. Absolutely. It's that believing. Because there are a lot of people who believe in God and they believe in the scriptures, but they forgot to believe in them. So they leave themselves out. They do all believe in it and everything of everything He is, the Most High, the Sovereign, everything else. And they be like, well, when it comes to me, I don't believe in me. And God is like, right, but that's who has the relationship in the earth. To so if I send somebody, you would sabotage it. Because let me tell you, the other part that I didn't say, if I could slide it in real quick, I discovered that my mom had a whole dad that I really had my biological dad. I discovered the real truth of wait a minute. So your high school sweetheart is my real biological dad. So the two men that I buried were not one that you taught me that was the biological that was not him. So it made me trace back what kind of person was this man. And I was like, so I got some generational things in me that
Yeah.
skipped to other women that didn't have so there's a lot of generational curses that was definitely broken on my life, but I was patterning after them. So a lot of stuff in that lifetime of the last 5 years, because I've been with my lady now. I met her 5 years ago in 3 days, right? So this story that I'm telling you about 5 years ago is when I met her, and we had this thing of dating. So even though and I was honest with her, I said I have to let some people go that I was dating because I told her that I was dating. I said because I realized you are it. And she said,
Yeah.
"You sure? You sure?" And of course, I was still being introduced to people, and I had to cut it off. I said, "I don't want to meet anybody else because it's confusing." Almost to the point,
Yeah.
I almost sabotaged my lady that was patiently waiting. She got rid of all her stuff, and I had people that were still trying to introduce. I had to just say, "No disrespect." But please respect that I found her and I know it's
Yeah.
her. Why? Because God is dealing with my spirit at this point and I can't seem to shake her. And it's not because we sexually active and all this other stuff like that I was pretty much building things on before I fell into it. I got to go ahead and sanctify it. This is one of those I'm scared to even play with it.
Yes.
So it's like,
Yes.
okay, I say, even if I want to, God would be like, not yet. Or if you
Yeah.
do go further, you got to, because this is. And so all of that stuff bring you back. And I'm just like, wow. So I had men and women of God who don't even know each other. It was like, sir, the woman that God showed you, she looks like this. She got long hair like this. And I'm like, that's only one person. They was like, respect her because she's it.
I love
And
it.
I'm like, mm-mm, mm-mm. So here go me, I'm fighting it because I'm like, no, because will God put a woman in front of you? Will He have you to pick? I went through all of that stuff. Now I
Yeah.
went from that. I said, let me settle that. I'm at peace with that. Then I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to move forward to propose to her because
Yeah.
the part that's not together that I wish to have together was my finances because I'm a
Mhm.
business owner. And when
Yeah.
that lady told me, I just want to be the partner with you. Can we just grow together and get that stuff? I was like, you know what? This is definitely a help me
Yeah.
when she could come in forgiving your bad mistakes. I said, that's what
Mhm.
love looks like. So it's that type of stuff that made it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
So that
I love
journey,
it.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you for allowing me to be on here. I actually took those poetry pieces and called it Love Journey. My newest book that I released at the top of this year is called Love Journey, of the different pieces that I wrote about these women. And guess who gave me the approval of it? My wife.
I love it.
Now, an insecure person would be like, "What? You trying to
Yeah.
put a book out about?" No, she was like, "Okay, it's your pass."
Yeah. I love it. I
So
love it.
you're gonna have to
So,
teach me. I'm getting inspired by you right now about putting these three marriages out, because I've been fighting that for a minute, out of respect of my new wife right now.
mhm.
And she, guess what? She already gave me the green light to do it. I don't know why I didn't do it yet.
Yeah, I and there is a very delicate way that you have to do it. One thing that I will say is I think that men need to tell their stories more. I'm glad that I'm in a day and age where I can have a podcast like this. And there have been, up to date, this is the second season of When Love Comes. And then there was two other podcasts before this of people who had been divorced, just talking about their journey. And so I do think
Beautiful.
that men need to hear this more, the transparency. So yes, there was Move the Finish Line podcast, and then there was Divorce Remix. So this is actually my third podcast.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. But
absolutely.
there is, people can tell when you are sharing your story from a place of wholeness versus a place of vengeance. And one of the reasons why I wanted you on the podcast, because after talking to you, you were not sharing from a place of vengeance. You were sharing from a place of wholeness. And
Thank you.
so when people
Thank you for
ask
that.
me, about, you're welcome, about sharing my story and how I share it, and even the person that I dated previously, because I remember him telling me, him saying, had I seen on paper that you had been divorced 3 times, he's like, I never would have talked to you. And what happened was he heard me share on a podcast, and this was 4 or 5 years ago. He found it on YouTube. And he was like, listening to you speak, I knew that you were healed. And
Yeah.
so when I meet a guy now, I'm like, just go look at my website and social media. You still want to date me? Let's go. But
Right.
I'm
Right.
joking, but for real. But no, and that's what I'm saying, is that we need to have these conversations from a healthy place, because I think that in so many other instances, when we hear, whether it's celebrities or different people talk about their relationship journey, it is from a place of vengeance. It is from a place of hurt, and so we
Yes.
need to have more voices from a place of
Yes.
healed. So
Yes.
I will encourage you that when you're ready, I do feel like men need to hear these stories.
Okay.
So,
I think
Dr.
it's men and women.
Cortez, yes,
I
men
think it's
and
both.
women, but I do find that there are more women sharing them.
I
Um,
agree. I agree with
than
that.
men. And so I
I
do
agree.
think men need to see that there is life after divorce, that there is love after divorce. And once again, I'm talking about not just people who have been legally married, but people who have been in relationships, and even those who have lost their spouse. I
Mm,
have had several people on the podcast this year who found love again after loss. And so I think that with doing the work, with walking your healing journey, that love is available. And let me say this as I close, your healing journey is not about your next relationship. And
no,
I always want to hit home on that, because your healing journey is for you.
absolutely.
And one of the things when we talk about patterns that kept me stuck in that cycle of unhealthy relationships was I was always encouraged to heal for my next relationship. And it
Mm-mm.
wasn't until that last one that I had a life coach for the first time. And she was the one that said, what do you want for your life? And it wasn't tied to the next marriage, the next boy. It was simply, what do you want April's life to be? And I was like, no one really asked me that before. It was
Right.
always about the next relationship. And
The
so,
next relationship.
yes. And so that is my goal through this podcast. Some of the guests are remarried, a lot of my guests are single, and we're just talking about, healing. And when I talk about when love comes, it's not just through a romantic relationship, it's loving yourself.
It's loving
right?
yourself. Yeah.
It's taking care of yourself. And so I hope that that is a takeaway for everyone listening. Dr. Cortez, I know you have a bunch of books out. Let the people know where they can connect with you if they're interested in diving deep into some of your writings.
Okay, so you can definitely find it on Amazon.com and on my website, which is drcortezdsims.com. You would find all five of them, and there's another 4 or 5 that are coming.
Awesome.
So you can definitely
Awesome.
find them on there. And there it's poetry. There's a self help book. There is a quotes. There's 52 weeks of encouragement. That's called Blessings. And so yeah, so it's definitely some good books on there that if you order on there, I can sign them and mail them off, or you can order for yourself and let me know what you think about them. I would love that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Miss April
Awesome.
Nollings. Yeah.
Awesome. So I will put your information in the show notes as well so that you guys can connect with him along with his social media handles so that you guys can just follow him for different wisdom and all the things that he gives. But thank you again, Dr. Cortez, for being on the podcast.
Thank you again, Miss April. I really appreciate it. This was a fun. Thank you again. And thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Awesome. Well, hey y'all. I hope that you guys really enjoyed that episode. I know it's a little bit longer than what we normally do, but I really just felt like having his perspective. Like I said, I talk to a lot of women on the podcast, though I coach men as well. I think that their voices are just lacking in the space that we are in. And so I wanted to have him on the show. So I really hope you guys enjoyed him. If this is your first time, please, please, please go back, listen to some of the previous episodes. There's just some really great stories, some great testimonies, and I'm sure that you will find yourself in one of them. And then if you're a regular listener, thank you again. The only thing that I ask is that if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love. Share it with someone you care about so that you and I are ready when love comes.